Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico. How you doing? Hoops Wire Live here on 330 to go. Cavaliers are rolling as we speak. 5-0, blowing teams out. But as usual, I've done very little show prep. So I'm bringing our good friend, Kenny, the Roadman Roda from WHBC Radio, longtime voice of Cleveland and Northeast Ohio, and 330 to go sports. Kenny, how you doing?
It's finally an opportunity for me to give back to the great Sam Amico for the multiple times that he has joined me, either when I was at KNR or now with the Kenny and JT show on WHBC as a guest. I always feel guilty. I think I bought you one dinner at Johnny Malloy's on a Monday night. That's not enough. So I'm like, I've got to give back to Sam Amico and come on his show. So I'm honored to be with you as your guest today, Sam.
Well, I appreciate it. And it's funny, just 2 nights ago, we were at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, and I was on your show. So, yeah, it's nice. I've always wanted to get you on here. I feel like when I do come on your show that we probably do 15, 20 minutes. We could probably do an hour.
Easy. Yeah,
2 guys who love to talk.
Yeah.
But anyway, pleasure to have you here. So far, what do you make of this early start to the season? Obviously, everything's going great through the first 5 games.
Sam, we saw each other also at Media Day, right? We were at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, and we had an opportunity to talk to Kobe Altman. We had an opportunity to talk to Kenny Atkinson, the new head coach. And I was curious to see what they told us then, right? Would it come to fruition in the regular season? And if so, how long would it take, or how quickly would it happen? Well, it's happened rather quickly with the offense, right? That's why Kenny Atkinson was brought in here to make this team a better offensive team, while the foundation for the defense has already been laid by JB Bickerstaff, and he did a nice job, but they wanted to take it to the next level. And I thought the move was a right move to make. And lo and behold, here we are 5 games in. Kenny Atkinson hasn't tasted defeat as the head coach of the Cavaliers yet. They've scored over 130 points in 3 out of the 5 games. They only did that 4 times all of last season. Evan Mobley looks like, he's more involved in the offense, and he's playing 10 guys and keeping everybody fresh, where I don't think anybody's averaging over 30 minutes a game yet. Obviously when you have blowouts, it's easier to do that, but still, I love what I'm seeing. The defense is still there, anchored by Jaron Allen and Evan Mobley, and the offense, even Darius Garland. And Donovan Mitchell made sure he pointed out to all of us who doubted Darius Garland. Darius Garland went crazy in the Garden. So Darius Garden, right, in Madison Square Garden, has a big game. So so far, so good from what we're seeing out of the Cavaliers.
Yeah, and that's very true. One of the things I thought was, here was a team it seems like it's getting a different guy almost every night when you're talking about the number 1 guy, because Darius Garland only, what do you have, 12 points, 10 assists against the Lakers, got into foul trouble again.
Right.
Some of those fouls were terrible calls. Terrible, as you would say, as Charles Barkley.
Terrible, Sam. Those officials didn't know what they was doing.
Right, yeah. And so, I mean, then he comes out, the game before that against the Knicks, when you had to have, you're searching for something, you're down 13 points, and
Right.
he just goes nuts. Garland scores 34 points. So what I've liked out of Garland is, number 1, he's coming off a really rocky season, and he's obviously, he himself has said the joy has returned, but you're just seeing, I think, a more confident, more comfortable, happier point guard, and a guy who's not forcing anything. So you look at that, there's one guy, and then all of a sudden, Kenny, Jared Allen he's 24-29 from the field on the season, and he has 5 block shots. So that means he has as many block shots as he does missed shots.
Right.
And he's been fantastic. But, and obviously if all goes awry, you got your superstar in Donovan Mitchell, where you can just get him the ball and, okay, do your thing, because everything else isn't working. But, and defensively, as you mentioned, they're great. But is there how do you view what Evan Mobley, the one guy I haven't mentioned of that core four, how do you view how he's played so far?
I loved the first possession of the season in Toronto. They gave the ball to Mobley at the elbow, and he scored the first bucket of the season. Because, again, Kenny Atkinson told us that's one of the reasons I got the job. The questions in the job interview, how are you going to make Evan Mobley a better offensive player? And we saw it again from the get-go. And they have him stepping out, shooting more threes. They have him handling the ball, initiating the offense with some pick and rolls. I don't know what the stat was, but he's halfway to as many pick and rolls with him handling the ball already in 5 games as he had all of last season, right? So whatever that crazy analytical stat is. So I love what I'm seeing out of him. He's got to demand the ball, though, more, Sam. And I think even Donovan Mitchell said that. He's got to get a little pissed off or angry if they ignore him and say to DG or to Spida, hey, give me the damn ball. I'm part of this offense. I'm a big part of this offense. I got a long-term contract just like you guys did. If we're going to win, I need to be a part of this. He can't be that timid, young fella anymore. He's got to step up and become a veteran and demand the basketball on the offensive end because defensively he's going to be there for you all the time, whether he's popping out guarding, 2s and 3s or he's down in the low post against 4s and 5s, whatever it is. He can do it defensively. He's got to continue to develop that game on the offensive side of things.
Yeah, right. And I think you're right. I think he's been better in that area when it comes to, maybe not necessarily demanding the ball. He hasn't, I don't know that we'll see him do that much, but you're right. That's kind of the next step for
Right.
Evan Mobley. But he's been more aggressive and efficient. And the thing I've liked about this team is nobody's really forcing anything. And
Right.
to me, the unsung hero here, Kenny, and I'm going to ask you about the bench, but the unsung guys here have kind of been Karis LeVert and Ty Jerome. Ty Jerome didn't have a good game in New York, but every other game, the other 4 games, he's averaging like 14.5 points a game and really just finding ways to score. Dean Wade always says that Ty Jerome has the meanest, first slowest step in the game. and it's really true. But just your thoughts on what the bench has brought, particularly Karis LeVert. I know both of us have kind of been a little bit.
Not a little bit. I'm not a big
on LeVert. Yeah.
LeVert.
Okay. Go ahead. I was trying to be nice, but
I know you were, because there are times when he's careless LeVert and he doesn't take care of the basketball, right? And that's got to change. Other times he scores you 30 points and he looks like an all-star, right? So he's too inconsistent for me. The problem I had with the Cavaliers, and one of the concerns I had with them, Sam, coming in, is they did not address the small forward situation, the 3-and-D guy, the wing, right? They decided to bring everybody back, signed long-term contracts with their core 4 players, except for Garland, who already had the contract, and they didn't address that. And that's where I was worried, because I'm not a believer in Max Strus, too inconsistent. I'm not a believer in Karis LeVert, too inconsistent for me. Dean Wade, it seems to always be hurt, and you can't count on him all the time. And sure enough, Max Strus is out with an ankle injury to start the season. So Dean Wade starts as, I guess, the 3, right?
Yeah.
And he's doing a nice job defensively. Offensively, he's still a little inconsistent. So everybody that plays that position is inconsistent offensively. He gives you the best defensive player from the 3. But I will say this. When everybody is in their role and Karis is coming off the bench as a 6th man, right? And last year, Ty Jerome played the first 2 games, ankle injury. He was done all season. We didn't know what the heck kind of a player he was going to be. All we knew was, hey, he came from Golden State, so he must be pretty decent, right? Yeah. And I'm sure Kenny Atkinson remembered him from his days there at Golden State as well. So I like what I'm seeing. He gives you what you got out of Ricky Rubio before he blew out his ACL, right?
Right.
He's giving you that veteran, point guard coming off the bench who's not going to be an all-star, but you don't have to worry that he's going to turn it over 4 or 5 times and go 0 for 7 from the field and give you nothing. And you look at the box score, and he's a -20 when he was on the floor that game. So I like what they're getting out of him. I like what Karis has done so far. Be more consistent. That'll put me at ease. And then we'll see what happens when Max Strus gets back. And it'll be interesting if they're rolling. Do you put him into the starting lineup, or do you keep Dean Wade in the starting lineup? Don't upset the apple cart. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And bring Max Strus off the bench. So that'll be up to Kenny Atkinson.
Yeah, I think theoretically you could always start moving Max in slowly and bring him off the bench, and he's making starter money. They brought him here to be a starter, but if you're rolling, it's hard to take. And Dean Wade, there's times I'm watching the games and I'll just sit there as a fan. It'll drive you nuts sometimes because I'm like, he's had 3 wide open threes and he can't knock them down.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you got to be able to make that shot. And then I look after the game at the box score, and the Cavs shot 61% from the field. So It's like, it's no big deal. And he does so many other little things very well. But, if I think in order for Dean Wade to stay in that starting lineup over Max Strus, he's going to have to he probably only takes 4 or 5 shots a game. You've got to knock down 3 of them.
Especially if they're wide open, right?
They have been wide open. And he's, look, you need a guy like Dean Wade. When you have a core 4 that's cooking the way the Cavs are, you need a guy who's only going to shoot 5 times a game and is going to be a good defender. And that's what Dean Wade does. You're right, Kenny. You got to keep those guys, you got to hope that Dean Wade stays healthy, which he has not been able to do. And if you're going to play, starters types of, the one thing they could do is start Max Strus, play him just to avoid any kind of controversy or, Max Strus being upset that he's coming off the bench or any kind of chemistry stuff. You could start him for 4 or 5 minutes and then bring him off, bring Dean Wade in. And maybe if you feel more comfortable, depending on matchups, finish with Dean Wade. So there's a lot to, that's kind of stuff for the future. I guess Max is probably another 3 or 4 weeks away.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about that for a while. Neither does Kenny Atkinson. Just keep rolling.
Yeah. And the one thing I will say about Kenny Atkinson, Roadman, is that he doesn't really care about any of that stuff. It's like, I'm just going to play the people who are going to help us win the basketball game and play the right way. I'm not worried about personalities or any of that. Kenny Atkinson's made it pretty clear, and Karis LeVert and Jared Allen, who spoke or played for him in Brooklyn, made this pretty clear. Kenny Atkinson only cares about really his own feelings. He's going to make sure that we're winning basketball games, and that's what you hire a guy for, right? I mean, yeah, you have to manage personalities, but so far so great. I mean, here we are. 5 games. It's not just the fact they're winning, Kenny. It's the way they're playing, the way they're moving the ball and defending. So,
and 2 of their 5 wins, Sam, the Knicks and the Lakers, right?
Yeah.
The first 3 we figured they'd win, right? Okay, let's see what you do against 2, one really good team. The Knicks, I don't know how good the Lakers are going to be. I was talking with somebody within the Cavs organization after the game the other night, and they said to me, if LeBron isn't able to play over half of the games, that's going to be a non-playoff team. They're not going to make the play. He's going to have to play 65 games for them to have a chance to make the playoffs, and he's going to have to continue to put up LeBron numbers, even though he's 40 years old, because if he doesn't, that's going to be a team that's not going anywhere, and I agree 100% with that.
You know what that team is without LeBron? They're Anthony Davis old Pelicans teams.
There you go.
That's it. That's all they are.
Yeah.
But do you think when I watched the Lakers, the first 2 or 3 games, first 3 games, what I saw from them, I'm like, all these games are at home. They're fired up. You get that point where it's fired. It's just the same thing as people saying that about the Cavs when it was like, oh, well, they played 3 teams that aren't going to playoffs to open the season, and the Pistons, the Raptors, and the Wizards. And I was just like, yeah, but at least they blew those teams out. Right. I mean, it's better if those games were close and the Cavs look clunky like they did in the playoffs against the Magic, then you'd be concerned. But they blew those teams out, and then they blew out the Lakers the win in Madison Square Garden against the Knicks to me really showed me like, okay, this team has it together right now. So that's my question to you is, and I know this is just always a guess, but how much longer do you think LeBron James is going to keep doing this as long as he stays healthy?
Never say never, right? In sports, I said he'd never come back and play for the Cavs again, and he brought him a championship, right? So this is a guy that doesn't look like he's, slowing down in any capacity. The one thing I'm curious with him, and I wanted to ask him the other day, but didn't get that opportunity to. So, how many more years does he think he can continue to put in the off-season work and maintain, that level of athleticism?
Yeah.
Is it 1, 2, 3? Bronny's playing with him now. We got to see Bronny score his first NBA bucket the other night in Cleveland, which was kind of cool because we remember him. Sam, you and I talked about this, running around the court at then Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse and in the locker room. So that was cool. So he checked off one of his goals, right? I don't know if LeBron can ever be a role player. Like Bill Walton ended up being a great role player for the Boston Celtics, right? Michael Thompson was a great role player for the Los Angeles Lakers back in the day, and they subjugated their ego to win another championship or win a championship for Michael Thompson. I don't know if LeBron can be a guy coming off the bench, right? And so maybe he can't. And if that's the case, then he could play another 5 years. By not being a starter and playing starters minutes, if he were to go somewhere else on a good team and be a weapon coming off the bench, like with the Cavaliers, that would be, a remarkable feat on his part where, hey, I don't need to start to impact the game. I don't need to play 35 minutes to impact the game. I can come off the bench. So I don't know where he's at with that, if he's willing to do that down the road. But right now they need him to be a starter and they need him to play at an all-star level to have a chance with the Lakers.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's just and that's asking a lot for a guy who's going to be 40 years old on December 30th.
Is he 40 already, or he's going to be 40? I've lost track. He's been in the league so long, I've lost track.
He'll be 40 on December 30th, and the Cavs play the Lakers the next day in LA. So yeah, that's. They got the Lakers already and got that out of the way. And that was LeBron's worst loss ever to the Cavs team. So the tides have definitely turned in terms of those two franchises. And frankly, I think the Lakers have, and you gotta build, I mean, you gotta have LeBron on the team because he's your meal ticket, right? I mean, that's how you make money. That's how you create interest. You could put LeBron on the Charlotte Hornets or Memphis Grizzlies or Washington Wizards, and they'd be huge. It would be day in, day out coverage and fans buying tickets and merchandise. So you have to do what you can to keep him happy from a business standpoint. From a basketball standpoint, like you just said, Kenny, he's still their best chance at winning. At the same time, as the Cavs used to do, the Lakers have totally mortgage the future, and the difference is the Lakers have totally mortgaged the future on a guy who's 40, and you don't know how much longer he's going to keep doing this. Maybe it'd be another 2 or 3 years, which is not a big deal, but this team is, even with LeBron at his absolute best, this team's not winning another championship as constructed, and they're probably, I would say, not getting out of the second round. The first round would be a miracle for the most part. So anyway, back to the Cavaliers. Kenny, it seems like, first of all, they beat Orlando on Friday. It'd be 6-0. And then you've got 2 against the Bucks, 1 in Milwaukee the next night. That's going to be tough to play Orlando.
Milwaukee's not playing real well.
They're playing terribly. So I'm wondering, it's like, are they going to get their act together in just in time for the Cavs? And then they come to Cleveland.
Or are we catching them at the right time? A lot of this, Sam, you've been covering the league so many years. It's when you play a team, right?
Yeah.
When they're struggling early in the season, injuries, factor in before the All-Star break, after the All-Star break. You can always steal one if you're the lesser team, it seems like. So maybe this is the right time. This is the best start since 2016-17, right, for the Cavs at 5-0. And then their best start ever is 8-0 back in 76-77. So, hey, I'm looking up at the schedule right now. So Orlando Friday, Milwaukee. That would put them at 8-0. And then they go to New Orleans to take on the Pelicans, which will be a good, test for them on the road. So is there a possibility they could start 8-0 and maybe even 9-0? Yes. But, and this is the other thing from Kenny that I love, the only game that matters is the Orlando Magic today.
Right.
We're not looking down the road. We're trying to win today's game and only today's game. We're trying to win today's practice and only today's practice. We're trying to win this drill right now that we're doing and only this drill. So he's trying to teach that, and I'll use this Jim Thome term, that focusness of the task at hand right then and there. Where your feet are is what you're worried about, and that's it.
Right. And, that's a great lesson for everybody all the time. We just can't do it. It's tough to do because we're always kind of looking ahead, reflecting on the past. But yeah, it's true, especially if you're a professional, sports team, focus on the here and now. Phil Jackson used to say that all the time too.
Be where your feet are and worry about that and only that. A lot of the football coaches in high school are using that now, trying to get through to the 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids who are, always on their phones and they're, and all this stuff. So they're trying to get them to use that focusedness too.
Yeah. I like that focusedness. I need more of that. I thought earlier today, Kenny, speaking of lack of focusedness, I earned a top badge from the Facebook page that's golden retrievers playing with kittens. And I thought, boy, do I need to get out more. This is my focusedness, clearly.
Oh, boy. Hey, you have to decompress, Sam. I get it. You want to step away from basketball occasionally, and
once in a while.
And golden retrievers are your way of doing it. So good for you.
Yeah, everybody's got a vice, so to speak, I guess. But Kenny, so obviously things are going great. And that aside, how do you see, let me put it this way. Who were your top picks, say 1 through 4 or 5 in the Eastern Conference, or however deep you want to go? And then same thing out West. I mean, what, obviously I came on your show, I give you mine.
Yeah, my top teams are easy. It's Boston, defending champs, and OKC right now, with Denver a close second out West. The Cavaliers, Sam, before the season, I was wondering, all right, we're going to run it back. We think there's internal growth. You used that term on our show on WHBC, right? And I'm thinking, okay, but I still think you need a small forward. Well, guess what? They can wait till February if it's not going well and try and trade for, Cam Johnson, maybe, of the Nets at that point, who they tried, I guess, in the offseason. They weren't able to do it, this year. So their internal growth looks to be pretty good so far. Can they maintain this? Can they keep that attitude where Donovan Mitchell has already spoken to the team about keeping their foot on the gas, which I loved hearing that, right at the beginning of the season. So I've got them. Right now, Boston's 1. I would have the Cavaliers as the second best team in the East right now. You've got the Knicks are trying to figure out their new group of people, right? Yeah. With Cat, who finally exploded for 44 the other night, and Mikal Bridges. I still think they're going to be a team to reckon with down the road. Do I buy Indiana after what happened last year? I'm not buying it yet. Atlanta got to the Eastern Conference Finals a few years ago, and where are they now, right? So I think Indiana's better suited to maintain than Atlanta was, but I'm not buying Indiana yet. Philadelphia is just a mess with Joel Embiid and whatever the hell's happening with him. Milwaukee, they're struggling right now. Giannis wasn't even sitting on the bench either last night or the other night. It looked like he was disengaged with his teammates after he put up 37 and 12 or something, and nobody else did anything. So for me, top 2 teams out West, it's OKC, Denver. In the East, it's Boston and Cleveland right now. And if the Cavaliers can stay healthy, and that's the big thing, right? We haven't seen this group of players play, what was it, 28 games together coming into this season?
Yeah.
Well, they've played 5. And they're 5-0 so far, right? I think they're going to be 6-0 after Orlando because I think Paulo Banchero's injured. So that's going to, give them what I think will be another opportunity to add to the win list. So I see the Cavaliers no worse than a number 4 team as the season unfolds in the Eastern Conference. So a top 4 team in the East. And I even went and now that it's legal, and look, there's LeBron. Hey, LeBron, what's up? Now that it's legal, right, and we can wager on things. I did a futures bet, not to pick who's going to win the NBA championship, but who's going to play in the NBA championship. And I picked the Cavaliers from the East and OKC from the West on a futures bet for like $5 that would pay, a decent amount of money. And is there a realistic chance of that happening? Absolutely. I love OKC. My goodness, what they've been able to do, thanks to the Paul George trade and everything, and their drafting, and they got Frankenstein from the Knicks last year who killed the Cavaliers as a backup. The battle, the Joker as well as Wemby out there, along with Chet Holmgren. So I like OKC. I'm curious to see what Denver's like this year. I have a theory, and tell me if you agree or disagree on this. I have a theory that anybody that has Chris Paul, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook will never win a championship. Those guys are concerned more about themselves, in my opinion, than they are the betterment of the team. And they're at the end of their career. And what have they won? Nothing at this point. Harden's been to the finals 1 time, and that was when KD and all those guys together.
A young Westbrook.
Exactly.
I'm with you.
My theory on that.
I'm with you. I mean, I don't think James Harden's getting to the finals at this stage of the game unless he finally hooks up with another. And the days of those of teams wanting to go out and get big names just because they're big names is over. Right. Because you look at who's winning championships, teams that are kind of organically built, like the Boston Celtics. Now they went out and got Kristaps Porzingis, but he's not an A-level superstar. Correct. And Drew Holiday. They went out and got Fitz to help them.
And that was the steal of all the moves last year. Yeah. I mean, you talk about a glue guy that only cares about winning and not himself.
Right.
Mike, I would love when they got rid of Mark. I'll throw Marcus Smart into that category, guys. If you have him, if you're counting on him, you're not going to win, right?
Right.
But Drew Holiday, all he wants to do is win, no matter what. And that's, he's got 2 rings to show for it now with 2 different teams.
Yeah, and Milwaukee hasn't been the same since he went away. People thought, the Celtics are getting Drew Holiday, big deal, starting point guard. But he had a lot to do with the Bucks winning the championship. And speaking of the Bucks, to me, Damian Lillard, Kenny, he was 1 of 12 from the field last night. He's just not the same guy. I wouldn't put him in the Westbrook Harden category where you're saying,
close, right?
He's very close. I always said when he was in Portland, he was just so, and look, he seems like a nice enough guy, so this isn't anything personal, but he was just so celebrated on the top 75 NBA players list.
Don't get me started on that, Sam.
And I was just like,
okay, no.
If Damian Lillard's your number 1 guy, you're not going anywhere. And then the NBA put him on that list, and I was just like, are you ahead of like Alex English and Bernard King and guys who could take you places? To me, Damian Lillard was a guy who, he scores third. There are some guys who are just scorers, and that's fine. That's what they are, but don't expect to win. Anyway, I'm going off on a whole tangent.
Yeah, that's another show, right, Sam?
Right, yeah. So, Milwaukee obviously struggling, and I don't know. They've done nothing to build around Giannis. And then also, I think that real quick here, I know people don't tune into the show for this. I was curious what you thought about the Mavericks because they did go to the finals last year. Kyrie, Luka, kind of a washed up Klay Thompson, who had a huge game, his first game in Dallas, probably on pure energy alone, and ever since then just looked like a middle of the road shooting guard.
They're like Indiana to me.
Yeah,
everything broke right for them, and it happened, and Kyrie can be the Robin to Luka's Batman, but what else?
Yeah.
Luka's a hell of a player, right? I mean, no doubt. And Shaq talked about this when he and Kobe were together, and Kobe was just a workaholic and Shaq wasn't. He was just so big and physical. And Shaq said, if I would have taken better care of myself, we would have won 8, 10 championships, whatever it was. Well, if Luka would take better care of himself, right, I think he could be an even more dominant player, and he's already scoring 33 points a game, right, and is a hell of a player. I can't see them in back-to-back years getting back to the finals. I don't think they're good enough to go back-to-back Western Conference champions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Denver to me is still, that's who I hope the Cavaliers can be like, and the Celtics, right? They're saying build from within, the trade they made, the draft picks they made, and they stayed with it. And Denver won a championship waiting for Jamal Murray to heal, right? The Gordon trade, that's a great fit for them, and it worked out. And I love the Porter pick. I wanted the Cavaliers to take him because who'd they get? Colin Sexton that year, I think. Maybe was it Sexton? I think it was.
It was Colin Sexton draft, Michael Porter Jr. Yeah.
And here's a guy that could have been the number 1 overall pick in the draft had he been healthy, and you had a chance at him at 5 if you would have just waited it out. You waited out Zydrunas Ilgauskas. Why not? So anyways, off on a tangent. My bad. Squirrel moment.
Well, that would solve your outside shooting small forward issue.
There you go. Right. So, but they kept that team together, won a championship. Boston, there were rumors, are they going to break up? Tatum and Brown. No, they kept them together, won a championship. So maybe that's the blueprint for success for the Cavaliers with Mike Gansey and Kobe Altman, that they're doing that. And hey, they're fun to watch. They've got a new energetic coach who's doing what he said he would with the offense. The defense has stayed the same. My only concern at this point, Sam, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, is we've seen teams for about a 20-game stretch do what they were supposed to do, and then they start getting away and reverting back to old bad habits, and I call it the stanky leg offense, where Darius will sit there and pound the ball for 20 seconds, and then it's a 9-1-1 shot to try and bail you out. So I need, when it does get going bad, and there will be bad stretches, that's where Kenny Atkinson needs to step in and do what he did the other night, right, in New York, where he showed him one clip at halftime of them not rebounding the ball and the Knicks getting 3 offensive rebounds, and he walked out. That was it. Message received. That's what I need him to do when they start maybe getting away from sharing the basketball and doing what they're doing now. And so that's where he'll earn his money, I think, as well.
Yeah, and I think that one of the big things too is, are they going to be able to look? Kenny Atkinson has said this, Kenny, and I've said this on your show, repeated what he said on the show. He's the only coach I've ever heard at media day or training camp say, there's going to be times where we're bad. Right. Things aren't going well. We're, not producing. We're losing 6 of 8. We have key injuries or something. He's like, this is the NBA. It's going to happen. And I've never heard a coach say that. Like, they're always blowing smoke and, we're going to be, things are great. And here's our goals. And we're going to hit every one of our goals, but he just came out and said that. And I thought, to me, it's like, how do you get through the other side of that? Right. And that's what Kenny Atkinson's whole message is. When we hit that bump, and he came out and said, the last 2 or 3 years, the Cavs they've been worse after the All-Star break.
Yes, they have.
And he's like, you can't do that.
That's when you have to get better.
There's no point in being good before the All-Star break. You got to be at your best after the All-Star break, April, May, June, if you're lucky. And I just celebrated that because I have never heard a coach say that before at media day. So,
I'm looking up at my schedule. There are going to be, trips, right? Those West Coast trips, Sam, right? Where you may go 1-3 or 1-4 or whatever it is. Yeah. And you're tired or whatever. And how do you respond? How do you face adversity and overcome it? And it's a great point by you to bring that up, because that's one of the pitfalls, I think, of Bickerstaff was they didn't get better. They struggled down the stretch and took that into the playoffs, got bounced the one year in the play-in, got bounced the second year in the first round, and struggled to win the first round last year against the young Orlando team, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to be peaking going into the playoffs, not running out of gas or struggling to figure things out.
Right. Kenny, WHBC Radio, how long have you been there now?
Believe it or not, I spent 22 years, I think, at WKNR in Cleveland. It's 10 years already at WHBC, 1480 AM in Canton. My old college roommate, JT, and I've been doing it for 7 of those 10 years. And we're having fun. We're two idiots on the radio talking sports and entertainment and whatever it is. And it's been a lot of fun for me because we carry the Cavs, we carry the Browns, we carry the Guardians, we carry Ohio State, and we do high school football and basketball. So it's a nice combination of it. I don't have to just talk Browns 24/7 like they do in Cleveland on both sports stations, right? I get to talk and Guardians. It's fun and do high school stuff. So I'm really enjoying it. And it's always great when we get experts like you to come join us to make us seem like a national show when we get a guy like Sam Amico to come on the Kenny and JT show.
I think you're thinking of Sam Amick. He's the national guy. I always love coming on and I remember, as a college student, not realizing you weren't, at this time, not much older than me. But then I thought you were like 50 because I would drive and I remember telling my friend, man, Kenny Roda, I love his, because you were doing the updates on KNR at the time. And my buddy and I, my best friend from high school and I, who you met actually one point, we were out somewhere. We were just like, Kenny Roda's the man. And who knew that eventually you'd be called the Road Man?
I know, right?
At the time, huge fan, still a huge fan. And Kenny, before I let you go, I know you got to run because you got high school football tonight. I remember one time I was driving in Indianapolis and I'm listening to Dan Dockich sports radio show. Dan Dockich, who played for Bobby Knight at Indiana.
Right.
He really did. I watched the game. He shut down Michael Jordan when Indiana played North Carolina. He frustrated him to no end. So I was a big Dan Dockich fan. I was listening to his radio show in Indianapolis driving through. And he says, coming up next, Kenny Roda. And I'm like, what, how on earth? And so I got to hear you in Indianapolis. That to me was like,
Dan's a good friend
moment for me. So.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. I appreciate the story. It's always nice to hear things like that. Dan and I became friends when he was the head coach at BG, and I was doing play-by-play of the MAC tournament. Can we do a quick story about Dan Dockich?
Yeah, I'm in nowhere. I got nowhere to be. So I'm looking at golden retriever kitten pages.
Yeah, that's true. Right. All right. So we're doing the MAC tournament as we did for many years when I was at KNR, and I did games with Michael Regai, Dave DiNatale, and all the great guys that I worked with there. And so we're doing a BG game, and I tend to call out the officials when they make a bad call on the radio. And even when I played and all that, so I'm not a huge fan of the officials. Well, neither is Dan Dockich, right? So we're at the end of the scorer's table. We're doing the game. PG, I forget who they're playing, and it was just a horrific call. Just a terrible. And Dockich is losing his mind, and I'm saying, Dan's absolutely right. That was a terrible call. There's no way that should have been a foul, yada, yada, yada. And he hears me, and he calls the official over. He says, come here. He goes, even the radio guy says that was a bleep, bleep, bleepity bleep call. And he's right, and so am I. And so, and they ended up winning the game, and we got to talk to Dan, and we became friends from that point forward. Little did I know he'd go on to be an ESPN basketball analyst and now a nationally syndicated talk show guy. And we go on each other's shows, whether the Browns are playing the Colts, the Pacers are playing the Cavs, and things like that. And we've remained friends after all these years. And it was funny because we weren't on delay. And Dan, would occasionally say a few choice words that the FCC wasn't, allowing to be on the air, but they bleeded through to everybody that was listening. So, we've we've maintained our friendship over the years. And here we all are. Yeah, I know your buddy, Jeff Phelps. Who knew, right? You guys, everybody growing up, and here we all are still doing this after all these years. And we enjoy what we do. It's a passion of covering sports, and you and I are diehard basketball. It's my favorite sport. So anytime the Cavaliers are relevant, and they are again, it's great to be at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse and talking about them on a daily basis.
Yeah, people may not know this, but Jeff Phelps and I grew up on the same small little street in Northampton Township.
How about that?
Which no longer exists. It's now annexed with Cuyahoga Falls. At the time, it was Northampton Township. And Jeff and I went on to co-host Cavaliers in the Paint together on Fox Sports Ohio. And we never brought it up or never really thought about it. There's probably like 3 or 4 shows in at the commercial break. Jeff looks over at me and said, "Don't you know everybody else who grew up on our street is sitting there thinking, what are those two dorks doing on television?" And that was it. That was the only time we ever brought up that we grew up on the same street in the whole show. But yeah, I mean, Kenny, I used to go to his house 12, 13 years old. He was in college. I would ride my bike up to his house and we'd look at baseball cards. He'd show me like the new baseball cards he got. We'd talk about music. I mean, he was like the big brother I never had. So it was just interesting to see. And I remember you and I going to LeBron's comeback in 2014 together. We rode out there together from Medina, going over to the Akron U Stadium. So yeah, it's once if you have some longevity in this business, which is, fingers crossed, you make a lot of really good friends. So and I would call you one of those.
Absolutely. Back for you. Yeah. And what you do, I love what you do. Follow you on Twitter on a regular basis, at Amico Hoops, hoopswire.com, and thrilled to finally be on this show to return the favor for you, Sam. So hopefully we can do it again in the near future if you need another guest anytime. I do feel proud that I bumped Mark Price, you told me the other day. So,
I told Mark Price when I saw him the other night too. So
my head, I'm not going to fit through the doorway because I'm here today instead of Mark Price. So take that, all NBA first teamer and 2-time 3-point shooting champion, Mark Price.
Yeah. And he came up to me and said, you still need me on the show? And I said, well, you backed out. So I have Roda on. He's like, you chose Kenny over me? I was like, yes, I did. So you can wait until next time. Mr.
How cool is that, though, that we're friends with him, too?
Mark
and we
Price,
both have
Campy
a relationship
Russell.
with Mark. Yeah, all those guys. Larry Nance, that team. Well, it's just one. You better buckle up. What's he say? You better buckle up, Buttercup. Brad Doherty, and that whole team. It was such a close-knit family. And all these years later, Craig Elo, I've had him on talking about the shot. And you can reach out. Literally, you can call them. You don't have to text them. You can call them and they'll answer and talk to you. And you've been on Mark's podcast. I know he's been on yours, and we've had him on our show anytime. He was just on with us the other day. So it's kind of cool to still be able to call those guys friends that we covered back in the day.
Yeah. Every once in a while, I'll just sit back and be like, wow, could call Mark Price a friend.
Yep.
I don't know if he'd do the same for me, but I would do.
I think so. Yeah. Good guy. All those guys were great guys back then. Even Danny Ferry, who I had a good relationship when he was with the Cavaliers as the general manager.
Yeah. Right. Well, like I said, we could go on for 2 hours if we didn't cut it short. So, Kenny, thanks so much. WHBC. And what's your Twitter? Is it the Kenny Roda?
At the Kenny Roda on Twitter, Kenny Roda on Instagram, 1480 WHBC, also the Twitter there. So you can find, just type in the Roadman or Kenny Roda. Facebook, we do a Riding with the Roadman segment every once in a while as well. So whenever I'm feeling up to it, I'll drop some knowledge or some stupidity, whenever I feel I need to say something.
All right. Well, that's great. Everybody, thanks so much for joining us, and we will talk to you next week on Hoops Wire Live as I lose my voice on 330 to go. See you then.